Chapter 2. Cat jumped. In the dim light, she hadn't noticed the figure sitting at the other end of the limo's bench, smiling back at her. "Hale?" she asked, as if the boy might be an imposter. But then a very different question crossed her mind. "Hale, what are you doing here?" "I thought you might need a ride." "The headmaster's office called me a car." He shrugged, indifferent, but amused. "And here I am in a submarine." As the limo pulled out of the school's circular driveway, Hale turned and looked out the window. Cat watched him take in the grounds, a faint smile on his lips, as if there were no place on earth he really had to be. Cat sometimes wondered if that kind of self-assurance was something only very old money could buy, and then she wondered if it was something you could steal. Hale waved as the gates of the Colgan school faded into the distance. "Goodbye, Colgan," he turned to her. "Hello, kitty cat." "Hale, how did you know I was—" But Cat didn't finish. Suddenly, she wasn't in the back of a limo. She was sitting on a hard chair, staring at the black and white surveillance footage of someone in a hooded sweatshirt running across the quad. She was looking at that image of her own student ID magnified on a TV screen. She was watching Headmaster Franklin hold a crumpled vanity plate above his head for all to see. "Hale," Cat sighed. "The headmaster's car? Really? That's not too cliched for you?" "What can I say?" he shrugged. "I'm an old-fashioned guy. Besides, it's a classic for a reason." He leaned against the window. "It's good to see you, Cat." Cat didn't know what to say. "It's good to see you, too? Thanks for getting me kicked out? Is it possible you've gotten even hotter? I think I might have missed you." So instead, she settled on, "Did my father put you up to this?" Hale exhaled a quick laugh and shook his head. "He hasn't returned my calls since Barcelona." He leaned closer and whispered, "I think he might still be mad at me." "Yeah, well, that makes two of us." "Hey," Hale snapped. "We all agreed that that monkey seemed perfectly well trained at the time." Cat simply shook her head. "You got me kicked out, Hale." He grinned and gave a slow bow. "You're welcome." "And you trashed the headmaster's car." W. Hale IV bought that car for Headmaster Franklin. Or didn't they mention that? Granted, it was to make up for a fire that W. Hale V allegedly started in the 8th grade, before they suggested that all current and future W. Hales continue their educations elsewhere, which worked out just as well since I'm at the Knightsbury Institute now. I've never heard of it. My father got a letter just last week telling him that I have become a model student. "Congratulations," Cat said, doubting it. "Yeah, well, I'm the only student." He grinned a very Hale-like grin. "Of course, the downside of attending a fictional school is that our lacrosse team sucks. Anyway, if the Colgan school wanted to be technical about it, I trashed my car." She studied W. Hale V. He looked older than 16, with messy light brown hair and a golden skin and a first name that, despite 2 years of effort, Cat had never learned. "I doubt they'd see it that way. Wesley?" she guessed. Hale smiled. "Not even close." So far, Cat had been through all the W.A.s she could think of, but Hale hadn't admitted to being Walter or Ward or Washington. He'd firmly denied both Warren and Waverly. Watson had prompted him to do a very bad Sherlock Holmes impersonation throughout a good portion of a train ride to Edinburgh, Scotland, and Wayne seemed so wrong that she hadn't even tried. Hale was Hale, and not knowing what the W's stood for had become a constant reminder to Cat that in life there are some things that can be given, but never stolen. Of course, that didn't stop her from trying. "So, how long before you broke into the school records office?" Hale asked. "A week?" Cat felt her cheeks go red. "But you didn't find anything on me, did you?" He raised an eyebrow. "Cat," he sighed her name. "That is so sweet and innocent. Naive looks good on you. Don't get used to it." He shook his head. "Oh, I won't." The whisper-like purr of the engine filled the car as it snaked through the countryside. "Why'd you do it, Hale? You don't belong in that place." Why'd you do it?" she asked again, her patience wearing thin. "I'm not joking, Hale." "Neither am I, Cat." "You've got a job for you," Hale said, "and only you. he added, before she could protest. The hills were growing steeper, leaves scattered in the wind, and in the distance the sun glistened off a lake, but Kat didn't take her eyes off Hale as she said, "I don't want a job." "You'll want this one." "I'm out of the family business, or haven't you heard?" "Fine." Hale crossed his arms and sank deeper into the seat. He leaned his head back and closed his eyes. Kat could have sworn he was already half asleep when he asked, "But are you out of the family?"